Hello, this is Hunter McDermott with another episode of Guitar Blog. This is episode 23. It is Thursday, January 9th, 6:58 p.m. There is presently a dog outside that is losing its mind. So I apologize if that shows up on the recording. Anyway, so this week I've been mainly figuring out how to sit. Trying to figure out how to sit so that I can practice and not hurt myself a lot. I already sit a lot for work and then watching TV, playing video games. Sitting all the time, which isn't great. But with guitar, it was something I never really gave much thought to, I guess. It seemed like things were fine. But when I'm really focusing on reading from a music stand and doing things where I might have to stretch more, or just playing for longer periods of time in general, I find that I can't do it without hurting myself, and that really sucks. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. Right now I'm sitting on kind of a nice, just sort of neutral stool, and then I've got a foot rest under my left foot leg, and then I got the guitar resting on it, on the left leg, kind of classical guitar style. Sometimes you see metal players do this too. I think about like Joe Pass. He would sit on a stool, and then he just had this huge, like those old, not old, but those old-fashioned, fully hollow, arch-top guitars. And so they just kind of like sit there, and there's just so much to the body of the guitar that it kind of rests on their stomach or their legs or whatever. It's a larger body guitar. Which maybe works in that case, but with a solid body guitar, especially the Telly, which is pretty small, I need to bring the guitar up more. I don't want to have the guitar just hanging off of my neck, so it needs to be supported somehow. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to mess around with this. The footstool is at almost its max height, which I don't like, because even though it's reasonably stable, just because it's so tall, it's kind of wobbly, which isn't great. So I don't know. I'm researching new solutions as I am starting to put more and more time into practicing for longer stretches. So I spent a lot of my time playing, working on stuff while just like sitting on the couch cross-legged watching TV. Don't do that. You should not do that. I still fall into that trap every now and again. Just because it seems comfortable, but then it's like, hey, why does my neck killing me, and my back and my fingers hurt, my wrist and my hand. So right now I feel more of a strain in my lower back, but it's not pain so much as it is, I'm using muscles there that I don't tend to use. So this is similar to what I've gone through with running. So I'm very good about running every day and increasing my distance, or at least speeding up my times and stuff like this. But it's been a really long journey, like with guitar, where there have been lots of peaks and valleys and a lot of trying to figure out how to do it and probably way overthinking it. What really has helped with my hand health and my leg health, as far as running and working and playing guitar and all this kind of stuff, has really been stretching, warming up, and then time, just giving things time. But additionally, it's building up muscles, right? So if I'm running and I'm stretching and I'm getting warm and everything, I still need to do lower body workout, get my muscles built up to where they can handle more. And so that when I'm running, I'm not just pounding my legs into the pavement. I am, activating the muscles in my legs so that I land in a springy fashion and then bounce back off. And if your muscles aren't there to allow you to do that, then you just crash into the concrete over and over and over again. So that's kind of how it is here. If I'm so used to sitting on the couch and just kind of slumping over, then I've got no muscle strength back there. And then when I try to sit up tall and practice, I'm going to be, it's going to be tougher for me. So I'm working on practicing a little bit the way I usually do, which is kind of lean back in an office chair with my legs crossed, which certainly feels more comfortable, except that I have to crane my neck forward in order to see music or see the guitar, and that's not good. But spending a little bit of time doing that just because it's what I'm used to, and then trying to spend increasingly more and more time sitting upright and working on building the strength in my back. Additionally, doing upper body workouts certainly helps with that. Push-ups, pull-ups, that kind of stuff. Any kind of free weight thing you can do. Anyway, can't give great fitness advice except that building muscle and then using the muscle is the way to go. Right, your muscles are there for a reason, so best build them up and use them for whatever you need to do. Let's see. So another advantage to having the guitar sitting on my opposite leg to what I'm used to is that it gets the guitar up higher. So as I was saying, it allows me to stretch more if I ever need to do that. It allows me to keep my wrist in a more neutral motion. So not motion, but position. So if my guitar is more level, then I'm having to really, let's see if I can get this on camera, bend my wrist a lot in order to get my fingers where they need to go. But if the guitar is up here, then my wrist is much more neutral. It's in line with my arm, and then I'm not straining unnecessarily. There's a really great body of study and exercise, I guess, a practice, whatever you want to call it. A technique, I guess. It's called Alexander Technique. I did study it a little bit a few years ago when I was just getting into programming. So I was sitting at the computer all day working on a keyboard, and that was foreign to me at the time. And I wouldn't say that I regularly think about my use, as they would say, in Alexander Technique. Or maybe I do, but I don't think about it in those terms. But I feel like there's a lot to it. And just being more mindful in general of what you're feeling. So maybe taking a moment when you're sitting with your guitar and just don't do anything, but just sit for a moment and think about what you're doing. Am I putting undue strain on my leg or my back, or am I craning my neck or doing something funny? Do I feel, pain in my wrist? Not even pain, but just strain, Some strain is okay, but for long periods of time, you're going to want to try to reduce as much strain as possible. In fact, I'll link to a really great video that I found years ago that basically changed my life. Some random guy on YouTube who had been having problems with his hands to where he was having to use like a camera to track his eyes, I think, or like a dot on his forehead, like a laser that he would have to wear in order to point at the screen when he needed to use it because he just couldn't use his hands, which is, terrifying to get to that point. But then he saw a physical therapist, and that person gave him some stretches to do, and he did them and was cured. And I can vouch for everything he says in the video. He's not trying to sell you anything. He's just showing you some stretches to do. I do them every morning, and I have done them every morning for the past 3 or 4 years, I'd say at this point. And I have, by and large, unless I'm, slouching, falling into my old habits, or just using the computer or a video game controller or playing guitar like an absurd amount more than I would normally do it, generally speaking, I am pain-free. So that's been really good. So I'm trying to kind of take those principles that I've thought about with my hands and spread them out across everything. How I sit at work with my back, and how I, even just lounging around, if I'm sitting back and having to put strain on my neck just to like watch TV, then even though it seems comfortable, it seems like I'm relaxing back into the couch or whatever. If I'm having to compensate for that relaxation by straining parts of my neck or back, then it's not worth it. It's not really relaxing, even though it seems like it. So that's been part of the transformation, I guess, for me, is just being more mindful of that stuff. Not just assuming that because I'm sitting on a comfy plush chair that I am comfortable and that my body is relaxed, right? Because it will do what it needs to do muscle-wise to compensate for where you are, where you need it. So be mindful of that, because if you are young, it will catch up to you as you get older. And you don't even have to get that much older. Just do it a lot and you'll see. Okay, so this week I have been messing around with all of these books. There's the comping book, which I've been working through. I'm going to play a little bit of the first exercise today, called Shiny. This daily exercises one for the melodic minor stuff has been interesting. I'm really stuck in this caged way of thinking. So for example, I might think A melodic or A harmonic minor. So I would think A minor, and then I would sharp the 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, G sharp there. Right, but while that works a little bit, so from here, that's all well and good, but then you get to this point, and I'm used to going here for a normal minor scale, and then having to stretch. This really kind of dovetails with what I was just talking about. Having to do this kind of stretch, while it's possible, and I have done that for a while now, it's really not ideal, because that note is also right there. So there's really no reason to strain myself just because it's similar to the shape that I know. All right, if I'm used to doing this, then, you know, my logical mind says, well, just sharp the 7. So wherever that note is, just raise it up. Well, that creates undue strain and stretching, where it maybe makes more sense to not worry about fitting everything into this caged box, caged cage, if you will, and instead consider that there might be a better way to do it, even if it's different and will require time to acquire. So it's still early stages, but he shows off 6 different harmonic minor scale patterns, I guess. So he's got, let's see, what has he got? This is in D minor. So there's actually the same basic stretch, but it's between fingers that can do it, rather than these 2 fingers. Right, between 2 and 4, he's doing it 1, 3. And only one of those shapes does that, so I think it's... And then there's this really nice sequence where it's like 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 2, 3, 5. Which is really nice and flows pretty smooth. But anyway, so then the other thing is this sliding of the index finger. I've seen scale patterns like that before and thought, surely it's less efficient to play 2 notes with the same finger than it is to use a totally different finger. But again, there's that interval, the one I was doing there. They're only a half step apart, but I'm creating this big stretch anyway, because it fits into this system that I know. When maybe it makes more sense to do this. So instead of doing 1, 2, and then a stretch on 4, and then coming up here with 1, maybe do 1, 1 with the slide, then 3, 4. Well, I misspoke there, but anyway, doing this stretch is easier if you've done that move first, rather than doing this with the stretch. That's way easier. Anyway, so the general thing being with book 1 and 2, I think, of the Gaul Braid series are about logical fingerings. I think the first one's even called that, logical fingerings. So it's been good. It's been a lot of me taking him on faith that this is good, but seeing that what he describes bears out to be really nice. And again, even though it's foreign and seems disconnected from what I already know, it's really been a good lesson for me to learn in my life, that not everything has to be connected to or directly related to something that you know. I think our brains as human beings attempt to understand our world by connecting things that we understand. So like somebody who's like way into car repair, car building, might learn how the body works by comparing it to a car or something like that. Oh, well, the fuel comes in and it does this or whatever. I don't know. But that's how I tend to think when it comes to understanding things. I go like, oh, well, in music, this is how this works. Or in computers, this is how this works. So, it makes sense from a certain standpoint to a certain extent to compare things that you're learning to things that you know in order to understand them. But when it comes to like technique and like how to do something in a physical way, not just trying to understand it, but trying to actually perform it or execute it, don't get locked into the same kind of thing. It's like using the wrong tool, really. It's like a hammer I would use for a small nail wouldn't be the same hammer I would use to knock down a wall, right? You need a bigger hammer. You need a sledgehammer or something like that. So that's okay. It's okay to use a different tool. It's okay to think about something different because what you're asking yourself to do is different. You're not just hitting a nail, you're tearing down a wall. Well, then you need a different tool for that. So don't use the same tools for different purposes, right? So that's been good. And then I have been messing with Charlie Parker Omnibook, but then I started playing around with this one, the 5th book in the series, and it has some really nice solos written out, and that's kind of the same idea. So my overall plan is to spend a lot of time soaking up material and just kind of hoping that it comes out in my playing, for now. So working on acquiring a lot of new stuff and then just kind of seeing for a little while how that stuff comes out in my playing. So as far as the comping stuff is concerned, I'm picking up new chords, which has been cool because he does use a lot of the same shapes in different parts of the guitar. So that's been good. And I'm not seeing those shapes pop up quite yet in my playing, but I'm seeing things like whatever, breaking up little chords that I already do know and playing one note or doing something like whatever, terrible examples, but using some of the rhythms that I've heard just because they're popping up into my head and then breaking the chord up into pieces, playing a note and then the chord, and then trying to create a melody, basically have the chords connect in a logical and voice-led manner to where they sound nice. You'll hear when I play this exercise what I mean, because he's comping, he's leaving lots of space, but he's also, you can hear he's creating little melodies as he goes along. And then the melodic minor, harmonic minor stuff is just utility. It's reading, it's getting this stuff finally down in a way that doesn't suck like I've been doing. And then as far as vocabulary or repertoire, I'm trying to use Charlie Parker book and also this book to just learn lots of material. The next extension of that, which I should start to do now as I go through, is finding nuggets that I like and taking those little phrases or licks into all 12 keys. Really fine bits. So I guess that's kind of the thing, is like learning a solo is not the point. It's not like, okay, now I know this solo. Learning the solo is exposure. Now that I know the first chorus of Au Privav, I can hear there's one spot that I absolutely love. Something like that from that solo. So I want to pick apart some of that and take that lick and take it into another key and really acquire it. But anyway, that's it. So I've been thinking about sitting, working through this material. I'm going to wrap it up today with playing through the first exercise, the first piece from the comping book, which is called Shiny, based loosely on the chord progression of Shiny Stockings, which I think it's an Ellington tune. At least he did it. I don't know. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna play. The book comes with a CD with Barry on one side and Milt Hinton on the other playing bass. So I'm gonna mute the Barry side and stand in for him, and then I'll play the bass. It might not be that loud, but I'll hear it, and it'll help me keep on time. But here we go. He's gonna yell at you at first, and then it'll mellow out. Here it is.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, terrible. I have played it so much better than that. That part, let's see. Maybe not. Anyway, needs more work. I think it's because it's a faster tempo than I've been practicing it. But anyway, I've got it all down, kind of, sort of, under my fingers a little bit. So I just need to work on cleaning it up. But that's been really good stuff to work on. So that's it for this week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.